Poppy, imagine you're getting married later in the day. 120 people are arriving in just a few hours. Some of them flying all the way from Sydney, from Vancouver. You're in the UK. And your phone lights up at 4:30 in the morning, and it's your makeup artist. And she says, "So sorry, I can't come anymore. I'm in hospital. I've been rushed to hospital. Absolute nightmare." You think, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? It's a nightmare enough until it later comes out. Your makeup artist is an enormous scammer. I'm calling this story Catch Her If You Can.
Oh, what a great film and what a great start, Luke. I wondered for a second whether you were going to tell the story I had seen online about a woman who has her sister-in-law pour black paint all over her.
I was going to do that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that some sort of beef they had, and then it ended up with the sister or sister-in-law, whoever, just pouring black paint over her just before she went up the aisle?
Yeah, and it's so awful. She I did see an interview with her where she sort of they redid the wedding at a later date, but they had got married that day, and she was like, someone had a spare dress, which I find kind of amazing, and she managed to put it on and carry on. But
great wedding guest is someone who turns up with a small white dress in the size of the bride, just as like I've got you.
I mean, maybe it's one of those things where they're the bad friend who actually was going to steal your thunder, but then you actually are grateful for them.
Yes.
And this kind of makes me think about how the ways in which people can be scammed. People will always find some kind of thing, like I've never heard of someone scamming for makeup artistry.
Yeah.
But, we've had handbags on this program. We've had all sorts of ways people get conned.
Well, it's sort of a little bit similar to that in that it's someone living the glam life. The other wedding story I just thought of then, which we're not going to do today, but is fabulous, is the one where she gets stood up by her husband-to-be, and then they just crack on with the wedding and the party anyway. And all these fabulous videos and everything of just her and all her friends and her family and her bridesmaids just like having an amazing party, because it's like, well, we've paid for all this food.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is not that. This is the story of Ariana Rose, and she is a woman who has spent many, many years walking into people's lives and taking what she can to some very dramatic effects. This story in particular, this first one, the wedding, her being the makeup artist, it sort of begins in April 2022. Caroline, the bride-to-be, had gone about looking for a makeup artist for her wedding in Surrey, and she was scrolling through social media and saw some of Ariana's work as a makeup artist and thought, yes, please, having a bit of that. Skills looked amazing. All the testimonials were bang on. One thing that slightly made her curious was Ariana was free on a Saturday in the middle of peak wedding season. Caroline told a newspaper interview that, it seemed sort of maybe almost good to be true. But anyway, she booked her anyway and paid just over £1,000.
You might think it's a cancellation, though. You sort of think like, oh, it's meant to be. We got lucky.
Yes.
But yeah,
actually, you got
£1,000 deposit alone. So, I mean, I'm always amazed how much it costs. It is obviously an art form and everything else, but it's something people might forget to budget for, I imagine.
Yeah, but then when you add this to, she was already paying £4,000 for flowers, £4,000 on the photographer and the videographer. Yeah. Not necessarily my style, but anyway, each their own. So this email comes in at 4:30 in the morning.
This is Luke's way of saying, you're going to be paying for your own dinner at my wedding.
Yeah, exactly. Bring a sandwich. So this email comes in at 4:30 in the morning, and Caroline is just like, what the hell? This makeup artist is pulled out. But absolute 10 out of 10 bridesmaid, one of her friends, within an hour has a replacement coming from nearby Hertfordshire. So the day was saved. All of that is fine, and Caroline just thinks, I'm worried actually about this Ariana woman because she's had to go to hospital. That sounds awful. Didn't realise, or even think at the time, it was a big fat lie. Later, days later, when she's on her honeymoon, her husband is scrolling through Instagram, and he sees you on Ariana, the makeup artist, not on a hospital bed, out working, doing her makeup thing at a wedding, on those few days in Europe. And when Caroline herself goes to try and have a look, Ariana has blocked her. She hasn't got any access. So alarm bells start ringing. And if there's one thing we love on this podcast, which takes us back actually to the posh handbags being stolen story, we love a ordinary detective.
a sleuth, a citizen sleuth. And it often involves Instagram these days. It's the
Yeah.
primary way that this happens. So that's interesting that she'd gone to the lengths to block, but also it looks like part of her scheme is double booking, essentially, because you can get the nice cash from both events.
Yeah. Or just do neither of them. Although she did go to Europe to do whatever that one was. But anyway, Caroline starts to dig and she wants a deposit back. She tries to get in touch with her. No luck. She takes her to a small claims court to try and recover these £1,000. But as she's doing that, she realised that Ariana has like almost no online footprint that you can properly pin down. There's no address. There's no kind of website with any sort of like proper details on. She finds on Trustpilot though and realises, oh my gosh, I am clearly not the first to be scammed by this woman. From 2018 to 2023, this Ariana woman is accused of taking more than £15,000 from brides in fake wedding bookings. You know, it's a case of a makeup trial is cancelled or no show on the day itself. They ask for a deposit. You never get it back, all of that kind of thing. And they would all hear from one of Ariana's assistants, a woman called Anna or Rachel or Beck, and these would, you know, hex them and basically say, you know, you need to stop chasing this. Ariana's not well. We're going to call the police. You're affecting her health by sort of coming at us, constantly asking for this refund. But actually, there were no assistants. Police, when they later investigated this, because they get involved, realised that she did basically invent these assistants, which actually I would always like to. I mean, I don't want to be a criminal. I would like to do this at some point.
Invent an assistant.
Yeah.
Well, I do love the story that Hugh Grant used to have a fake agent that was actually him, because he liked to be able to say, you know, I'm afraid, you know, Hugh won't be doing that, and like could be more sassy and assertive, but also made him seem more professional. So maybe we should do that for the Strangely podcast. If you email, you'll have, you know, Jeanette, Luganized assistant. That will be us.
You want a name which is just ever so slightly sort of like not a real person's name, like Jeanette. Or, you know what I mean? Just one of those names where you think, who's called Jeanette working in podcasting? Anyway, so
she's reaching out to these other people on Trustpilot. Is she kind of building a wider case at this point?
Exactly. They're all sort of starting to realise that there are these different people with these different things happening them too. There's a woman called Rosie May Edwards. She had a slightly different issue. She was going to get married in Italy, a big old wedding. But when the pandemic sort of killed all that off, she scaled it down to just 45 guests in Nottinghamshire, but kept Ariana, the sort of original piece of this sort of wider wedding plan, on board. She paid her £1,500. On the day, Ariana was one of only 7 people with access to the bridal suite, and on Rosie May's wrist that morning, she had a brand new diamond-encrusted Rolex that she was wearing. And when it came time to walk down the aisle, she wasn't wearing it on her wedding day, but it was in the bridal suite.
Oh my God.
Just before the wedding's about to start. And I was like, actually, I'm done. I need to go. Fumph. She's out of there like nobody's business. And the next morning, Yvonne Rosemary realises that her Rolex has gone. She messaged Ariana to see, you know, have you seen it? And Ariana's like, no, but I can't believe that's so disgusting that someone would do that to you on your wedding day. Can't believe it. A friend of Rosie May's then followed Ariana's private Instagram account, and they saw pictures of Ariana wearing this Rolex out and about, living her best life.
That is so bad. I mean, like, as in, okay, it's bad scamming someone out of their makeup, but stealing their Rolex on their wedding day is flow. And then to wear it, I mean, at least pawn it, Ariana.
Yeah, exactly. Sell it. And Rosie May was 33 weeks pregnant, and she had, you know, all the receipts, all the paperwork. She had the serial number of the watch. They're quite easy to sort of say, you know, is this mine or not? Yeah. She had Ariana's address, which our previous person, Caroline, didn't. And so her and her husband drove there and knocked on Ariana's door. And they said that Ariana went absolutely berserk. 4 days later, Rosie May went into early labour. And when she finally came home with a newborn son, there was a letter waiting from the Metropolitan Police because Ariana had kicked off and made allegations against them. The first time that Rosie May ever left her baby was to go to a police station to deal with all of this faff. God. So these two other women start finding each other. There was a woman called Emily, who was a makeup artist in Manchester, who'd worked for Ariana years before and had been unpaid. When Emily tried to blow the whistle, Ariana turned it round on Emily and accused her of lots of different things. So basically, there's all these women and they're slowly getting together. There's Rosie May, who we heard from. There's Caroline a little bit before. And it was around autumn 2023 that she said, okay, we need to do something about this. they thought, can we warn people? So Ariana had a website called arosemakeup.com. So Caroline bought the domain name arosemakeup.co.uk and had like a big warning thing on there. So if anyone accidentally got to that page instead of the proper one, there'd be some kind of warning. They set up a Facebook group about it all. And in there was loads of stories, loads of victims. There was one bride scammed with a fake COVID excuse. There was another who accused Ariana of taking jewellery from her, other bits of jewellery. So there was loads of different things. So eventually they're saying, well, we need to actually raise this with the authorities properly. So they contact our friends, good to have them back on the podcast, Action Fraud, the people who you should ring if ever you feel like you're being defrauded.
Can I pause for 1 second? And I just want to say, I know it probably doesn't end this way, but I do wonder if there's like some Miss Havisham-esque backstory. Like, why specifically brides? Like, was she jilted? And there's a jealousy aspect because not only are you trying to like make them look shit on their wedding because they don't have the makeup that they wanted, but also you're taking like their jewelry and their nice things. And I just would be really curious, like if I was writing the thriller version of this.
Yes,
this is the sequel to Great Expectations.
Yes, well, you would set in Surrey, but it was, well, that would assume that this was her main hustle, which it was not. We'll find out,
ladies and gentlemen, is a radio segue by Luke Jones.
It's a tease. We will find out after these messages. Poppy, we're back talking about fraud. So we've been detailing how there's this woman, Ariana, who'd been seemingly defrauding lots of brides. This wasn't her main game. That was her side hustle as a scammer, posing as a makeup artist, maybe nicking things from them, keeping the deposit and the rest of it. Her record stretches all the way back to 2008, so almost 20 years. And it seems like she had a particular penchant for property and rental agreements and house sitting. So in 2008...
She really gets people where it hurts, though, isn't it? It's like your bloody home and your wedding.
Exactly.
Like,
it's not your crypto wallet.
Totally. And you know what, Luke? When I was looking for a New York apartment, almost got scammed. I was on Craigslist. There was a post for a little brownstone right in Park Slope. It seemed way under budget.
Too good.
The person I was but it was so clever because it was like exactly targeted to me. It was like a little garden apartment, and I was so desperate by that point. I'd had a lot of trouble trying to find something in that area, and I started emailing him. And the red flag was when he said that he was a sea merchant, and that I couldn't reach him on telephone. So I have to admit, dear listener, that I did get to the point of filling out a application form that did put my social security on it. So I do always worry that, like, what have I given it to? But then he said, it's been approved, having never spoken to me. And I said, and so I started bullshitting with him. I said, sea merchant, like very interesting. But I was so close to transferring that deposit. And so I really in that moment thought, God, I'm an investigative journalist, and I almost gave over 1,500 quid to someone from Craigslist just because you get into this mindset where you're like, application, deposit, like you're just trying to say anything so that you get a yes. I'm always like, here's my, reference or whatever. So I think getting people when they're in that vulnerable state is very unkind.
And also you sort of accept things which in the sort of clarity of a distant objective view to think, how would anyone fall for that? But I remember doing a thing about some of the romance scams are big here in the UK. And there was this sort of elderly-ish woman who I met, and she was talking to this guy, and he was, off in different sort of African countries doing amazing charity work, and they would have video calls, but because of his IT was wrong, his camera couldn't be on. Obviously, he wasn't who he purported to be in these various images where he looked amazing and dashing. And she would do video calls with this guy, and, invariably, for whatever reason, problems with his IT, his camera would never be on, but hers would be. And they had she hinted at sort of like intimate calls and conversations on these things. And it wasn't that he would ask for cash, because the banks are now hot on stopping people just sending cash to seemingly strangers, but it was buying cash gift cards, which that seemed like an easy way to sort of get around all those protections.
But again, another great vulnerability is people looking for love, and again thinking, it's just, wouldn't it be lovely if, and so the psychology of it is super interesting, and like that very intelligent, people can fall for these scams. So I have big sympathy. So she's not only getting people on their wedding day, but you're saying a rental scam. So how did that work?
So, 2008, she was convicted of stealing tens of thousands of. Well, this is first of all her employer. She worked for Barclays Bank, and she run up 60 grand's worth of unauthorized transactions. Inverted quotes. That didn't last long. In 2011, she was jailed for 20 months. This was this kind of real bread and butter for posing as a landlord and taking deposits and rent from 3 victims from a property that she was renting from somebody else. When she came out of prison, she changed her name. She carried on again. This was in Salford Keys this time. She rented a flat from a pensioner called David, and she created a fake email account to pretend to be him and to talk to these other 2 people that she was subletting the other rooms to. The game was slightly up when one of them found an article relating to one of her previous convictions, and they confronted her about it. And you want Ariana, she's invariably described in lots of these bits of reporting as kind of volatile and quite angry. And in this instance, she denied it and then said that her dad was dying and offered the woman £700. Another one, though, raised this with her, and she said she would, quote, smash her in the face if she went to the police. And also threatened going to her employers, who was a primary school, and telling them that she did drugs if she went anywhere with this. She then later rented a property using a forged reference. So she was the tenant, again using a fake email. She then just stopped paying and was living in there for about 16 months. She got up to £43,000 in arrears. And then when she was finally evicted, she even tried to sue the landlord, which didn't quite work. And a bit like the luxury handbag man we talked about way back, because this is our 20th episode now.
Happy 20th.
Happy 20th. She was posting lots on Instagram at Claridge's, eating lobster, drinking champagne, lots of beach shots, her in bikinis with big glass of rosé, living the absolute high life. In reality, she was claiming universal credit and she was stealing from people. That's how she was funding all of this. Which on the flash side, which is where the sort of Rolex slightly comes back, while she was out on bail, awaiting trial for the tenancy fraud, she wasn't stopping. She was signing up to house-sitting websites and was then going, house-sitting for people while they're on holiday. There was one house in Warwickshire that when they returned, she had cooked them a meal and she had baked them a cake. And then the owners later discovered she'd taken £35,000 worth of jewellery.
Oh, my God.
The brass neck.
This person, I mean, it's amazing sign that, rehabilitation of these fraudsters is incredibly difficult because they don't have remorse. And, there must be so many psychological layers to it. Like, again, you've let someone come into your home, maybe they're watering the plants, and they take probably very precious items with sentimental value. It's just so awful.
Well, that family in Warwickshire, she had taken a Le Creuset pan, a silver dish. She'd swapped some bits of jewellery for fakes so they might not notice. But she also took a set of gold-plated, I haven't seen images of these, so I don't actually know what these are, but gold-plated Christmas ornaments that the family had been collecting as a family tradition for 27 years.
Oh.
Don't know what that looked like, but
I'm
sentimental value.
Posh balls, really.
But gold-plated. Anyway, imagine her face when she walked in and saw them. She's having them. Anyway, all of this then caught up with her, and when police raided a property that was connected to her, they said it was like an Aladdin's cave. There were hundreds of items from homes all over the country. There were rare jewels, there were antiques, there were silverware, there was limited edition books. And a bit, going to your sort of point of, not part of it is just about, I don't know, the thrill of stealing, maybe, because
she
amongst
hadn't even
some
flogged
of it
elsewhere.
Yeah, and amongst some of these things were like war medals and someone's CBE.
Oh my God.
You just think, why are you taking that? Is that monetary value, or is that just a kind of thrill of taking it?
Yeah. Did people get their items back? Do you know if the police were able to presumably return things? Because that's a win, because often, for theft, it's very difficult. But they might have been able to get those CBEs back on the wall or mantle.
I don't know about them, but I do know that they found, because when they arrested Ariana, on her wrist, was a diamond set Rolex belonging to Rosie May, taken from that 33-year-old weak pregnant woman. And she did get that back.
Nice.
However, pop a pin in that for a second, because, Ariana eventually comes to court on the 2nd of July this year, so recently, at Southwark Crown Court. She pleaded guilty to fraud offences, using false names, perverting the course of justice, 5 thefts. The judge said it was a campaign of dishonest behaviour spanning nearly a decade, and that she'd shown callous cruelty and had shamelessly exploited people who put their faith in her. And she had to pay £67,000 in compensation. But none of this included any of the brides. Such is the way sometimes lots of these cases and complaints aren't pursued. And these women who had got together and had, got in touch with Action Fraud, had all these case numbers, did all the right things. As one of them said to the Times in an interview, we reported her to the correct agencies, we did all the detective work, but the authorities did not want to get involved. They did not get their day in court. So they're still furious because, as you said, it wasn't just the case that she had stolen money from them, but ruined a very, very special day. But will she be back at it? I do not know. She's currently awaiting sentencing.
Well, I would say the lesson is always check your Trustpilot, see if there's any warnings out there for someone, and that services are really hard to ever get that restitution. So I guess always get a recommendation. Not that I'm blaming them, but I'm saying that's the lesson to try and take, because there's these people out there who are awful. Yeah.
And if someone says they can't reply because they're a sea merchant and they're in the choppy waters off the US eastern coast, run a mile.
That is true. Well, I've got an amuse-bouche for you. So this story, Luke, involves a wild animal on the loose, which is another favourite of ours in this programme. It takes place in a place called Christiana, Tennessee, which has a very small population of just a few thousand people. It's a lot of farmland. And on Friday, May 30th of last year, not only was it home to a few thousand people, but also one zebra. And this zebra was going to be called Zeke. Taylor and Laura Ford had just purchased him. They bought him from Texas. It was going to be the showpiece of a family farm that had sort of chickens and bison and cattle and turkeys. And,
so obviously a zebra.
And obviously a zebra. As I said, it's the showpiece. And so he arrived from Texas to Tennessee, but by the Saturday morning, he was already gone, missing. They had not secured the location well enough. So they started to look like how the hell he'd got out. And they could see that near a creek about 75 yards from the property, Zeke had found a gap in the fence and basically run straight onto the Interstate 24. And
you forget how clever these animals are. It's like when we did the thing about Petonk the other week, and there was the elephant that put the thing on the electric fence and stepped over it and all of that. Yeah. You think it's just octopuses, but actually even zebras know what they're doing.
Thinking animals. So they call the authorities. The deputies have to shut down the highway. They say, look, a zebra's on the loose. He's got all the way to just outside of Nashville. And then he disappears into the woods. And so basically the internet goes completely wild, obviously. There's all these memes, there's all these fake sightings, there's a rumor he's been spotted at a Waffle House. There's people, for whatever reason, decide that Zeke is not his name, it's actually Ed. He's now Ed the zebra. And the Fords, who are obviously really concerned about their zebra, put out a statement saying, that Ed was a symbol of joy, laughter, and unity for the community. And essentially a manhunt ensues. Rutherford County deputies were trying to find him. They were chasing down these different sightings. They were hearing that he was trotting through neighborhoods, grazing in fields. And by June 6th, they'd bought in a drone to help locate him, which is really funny because one of the weird things about zebras is they are obviously designed to be camouflaged, but of course they also look incredibly striking. So it's kind of hard to imagine that they blend, but I don't know how well they do in that landscape versus where they're from. But the sheriff, Corporal Sean White, told reporters, we don't want to scare the zebra, please do not approach, they're perfectly harmless, but we're trying to, if you see him, just phone it in. But one of the twists in this story, Luke, is that zebras cannot be lassoed, because you would think.
Hang on there. Zebras cannot be lassoed. But surely they... you're talking to somebody who has been to the sort of rodeo championships in Austin a few years ago, where they did lots of the events were, how quickly can you lasso a cow that's running or a calf that's running? How quickly can you run after it, lasso it, flip it over, tie its hind and front legs together in a little doodah?
Oh my God.
The zebras aren't too different in shape, I'd have thought, to little cattle.
Well, this is what it says on. I mean, like, you're in a place where I imagine there's a lot of cowboys, so people were probably thinking, "Oh, well, I can lasso a horse, I can come lasso Ed the zebra." But apparently, it doesn't work because they have really different instincts. They're much more skittish and they're prone to panic. So if you do that, like, it just like runs further. It doesn't sort of like bound alongside you, I suppose.
So by the same logic, I also couldn't be lassoed.
So much more skittish than a pony. And she said that the Fords were ringing cowboys and were hoping that they would be able to assist. But they were also trying to tell everyone to rule out tranquilizers, because they were worried that if you tranquilized it and then he was like on a highway, that could be really dangerous. But this standoff with Ed lasted day 5, day 6, day 7. Like, this is really rolling on. Yeah. Ed was really out there on the lam. But there was also a backlash. Not everyone was supporting Ed. Angela Grimes, CEO of the animal advocacy group Born Free USA, called the whole situation unfortunate and completely avoidable. She was saying zebras are wild animals. They're not backyard pets. They shouldn't have been at the Ford's petting zoo in the first place.
Some sympathy with that.
And they were worried that, this was going to cause major stress in the animal. There was a sort of debate, a wider discussion going on in the background. And so finally, Sunday, June 8th, God's Day, the 8th day after he'd vanished, Ed was finally located in a pasture near a subdivision. And the plan to catch him was not a rope, not the dart as discussed, but they were going to use a helicopter. So they had an aviation crew working with the sheriff's office, the Tennessee Highway Patrol, and the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. And they essentially got a net and they caught Ed in that net. The helicopter drops the net, gets him, and then picks him up where he was put into a waiting trailer. And the images of the zebra wrapped in a net dangling beneath a helicopter with his head sticking out, sort of sailing over the Tennessee tree line, was very, very viral. And I'm going to invite us to watch it now for viewers of the podcast.
Exactly. If you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify, you get the benefit of this. Go on.
Okay, tell me 1, 2, 3. There he goes.
Wow.
And the funny thing
he's
is
spinning round and round in a little sort of, looks like a little sort of carrier bag.
It does. And he looks so cute. It looks like one of those dogs in a backpack, you're right, on the subway.
Exactly. He's in a sort of papoose.
It is a papoose. And it's he looks sort of, put out, like, my day on the run has ended. A little bit perturbed.
Looks a bit chastised.
Yeah, exactly. So that was obviously very endearing to everyone. Bless him.
And he's loaded into a trailer. Wow.
Off he goes.
Bless him.
So
he'll be knackered, though, after 8 days cantering around, maybe not having his proper food, carrots or whatever. I don't know what would you feed a zebra.
It's true, but
Savannah
he doesn't look
plain.
sort of emaciated, does he? It does seem like he's managed to... I wonder if fans of his were feeding him secretly. But a daycare owner in Hensonville named Stevie Michelle Kimbra saw the helicopter video and had an idea, and she actually wrote a children's book all about Ed the zebra's wild vacation. So,
Americans.
I know, always looking for a way
always
to
on the
make
hustle.
some cash.
Yeah.
So it meant that this little escaped zebra ended up with, a long story of being on the run, a discussion around exotic pets. He was caught by dangling from a black hawk, and eventually he was part of a children's book that you can purchase wherever you get your books.
Wow.
So that is the story of Ed the zebra.
It's amazing how someone should collate one day all these kind of stories of viral animals and then famous animals. I'm just like, because they do slip from the memory quite quickly. Like, what's happening? Wasn't it Cecil the lion who was shot by that trophy hunting dentist out of the US? That then got everyone really angry about trophy hunting for a bit until that died down. There was a dog that won Britain's Got Talent. We all forgot about him. He's now dead.
There's there's the Crazy Chimp documentary, which was obviously a big HBO hit. Have you ever seen that one?
No.
Oh,
As
it's
in
so
Michael
good.
Jackson's chimp?
No, it's about people who own chimps in America, and then like the fight where people were trying to, like, PETA and other people wanted to stop them.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of twists and turns. I recommend it. But you're right. We could be those people. Maybe we should collate a strangely special edition of animal stories you've missed.
Top 100 famous animals. That was sensational. Always good to see a zebra dangling through the Tennessee skyline.
Absolutely. Well, until next time.
What, if you've got a little sort of tease of what story you'll be bringing us next week?
It involves yet another cult. It involves murders, precarious connections, AI, and a lot of other fun stuff.
Oh, hold on to your hats. Strangely at alwaystruecrime.com is our email address. If you've got any views, brickbats and bouquets, always welcome. But also if you've got any suggestions of mad stories, maybe you spotted a giraffe floating over your town attached to a helicopter, send us the video. Subscribe to the podcast as well. That means you'll never miss out whenever there is a new episode. Poppy, pleasure as always.
Absolutely.
See you next week.
See you next week.